So I am a teacher and I am PhD student in geography. I am an association actor. Our association is Reading Network in Morocco. So I work to encourage reading among young people in Morocco, in Moroccan society. I was in the Open Shaba program with Kenza in on Toutes Lettres about equality in our society.
I think this experience was very fruitful and very interesting for me as a human because for the first time in my life I discovered a city without visited. So now I know all what I know about Coventry as a city is like my exchanges with Laura and Mel, and I think it's a very beautiful and interesting way to discover a city. Yeah, and even Munir, like Munir is from the same country, but we are both from Morocco. But yeah, I discovered the work and I meet Munir by this project, and I think it's a very beautiful and interesting way to meet the people.
It's been an honor for me to interact with all of you, to learn slowly, you know, using words from different languages, because it was also an opportunity for me to um, create somehow, but between French and English, and it was just great to have this window where I could use my emotional language as well. It was also the first time that I collaborated with Laura, and being artists in the same city, you know, it was yeah, just the right time, right moment, so great.
So yeah, the process was really interesting, and even like I was excited first of all to be part of this group to explore this way of storytelling with other artists who are across borders. So that was just a beautiful idea. But the being human was really catchy for me, like exploring that theme in terms of via storytelling and how that was going to be. So I was thinking of like, okay, language difference, what is that going to be? Is it going to be challenging, or is it going to be something quite, because I'm curious anyway about languages and the idea of maybe I don't really know what is being talked about, but just listening to that sound of another language coming through. And that's exactly, I think I enjoyed it even more than I expected.
We know each other since more than 10 years now, and we found a common preoccupation about the way we share a common ground of humanity within the art of sharing stories. When we use the word storytelling, we aim precisely at this ancient art that defines for us humanity, is how to share stories, and not, of course, as the use in politics or in marketing. And that's maybe the common link between all of us, is how to widen the the horizons, and how to share stories to make humanity more inclusive and more pleasant for everyone. Thank you to all of you for these wonderful letters. Love it. I don't know how to share my reaction to yes too. And when I first heard the final results, I was very moved because it's amazing how four persons that never ever met in the same place, only through 3 virtual meetings, could arrive to such an emotion and such a confidence by sharing such intimacy. So I'm very grateful to all of you. Maybe you could tell us now how you proceeded to arrive to this result. So my first question should be, you didn't know each other, and your common decision was to send to each other letters, to write letters to each other. So how was it? How was it a spontaneous decision, or was it an easy decision? How did you manage with the letters? Who would like to jump in first?
Don't mind. I'm actually happy to do so. So I think we had like 2 or 3 workshops now, half a day workshop or so. The first one, it was to break the ice and to get to introduce one another. And I remember that there was quite a lot of, not a lot, but from my perspective, we were a bit unsure about what was going to happen. Because of the experimental element to this residency. And as you were saying, Kenza, yes, I mean, I knew Laura before, but I didn't know Mounia and Soufiane. Yeah, I think it was only Laura and I who met previously anyway. So there was lots of elements of, I think we touched upon the fact that we wanted something a little bit intimate, more or less intimate, again, because we have such a spectrum now of ways of expression. But then it was, this idea was challenged by the fact that, yes, we were not that close to one another. And I feel like correspondence and like exchanging tangible, it's a word that Laura is using in the piece, exchanging tangible messages was much needed at the time. So when it came to write the letters and exchange the letters, it was already December 2021, and we were all already exhausted of a long year, mainly screen-based and so on. So we wanted to escape a little bit from that, I feel. Or I should be speaking from my perspective. I wanted to escape from the screen during the winter break, and it was so lovely actually, because even to my close my loved ones, I don't write them letters, no? So writing letters to Mouni, Soufiane and Laura was so special, and I actually felt like more connected to them while writing the letters than, you know, being together on Zoom. And then the reception of a letter, the excitement as well to receive a letter from the other side. No, well, maybe it's not the other side of the world, but it feels like it. Casablanca is quite far, so yeah. Yeah, what was the question again? Oh gosh.
How was it?
How was it? Yeah, it was a little bit scary, and then oh yeah, maybe let's give it a try. Excitement, and we were really lucky to have Soufiane as well as part of the team, because Soufiane is a podcaster, so we should highlight the fact that Soufiane did a lot to put this together, and also Mouni made the visual for this time that we're having together. So there's been lots of you know, people self-appointing themselves to contribute to making the thing come together.
I would like to know, because it doesn't appear in the sound documentary, but he used objects, lohas and materials. Munir had a story with the lady at the post office who didn't think it was interesting to pay such an amount to send just 2 pieces of paper in the time of internet. So maybe you could share some words about your relation to the materiality of the letter, also what you decided also to make appear in the sound documentary. Munir, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I share some pictures. So I was search for picture about the topics I chose, and I make it in the Canva program. I make some montage by pictures, expression, the topics, expression, the expression, the reality of what I trying to say. Then I was create the Coventry Casablanca. I create Casablanca by Coventry Batiments and Coventry by Casablanca's building. So the idea is just coming like that. Why not? I do something who ressemblait the two cities. Yeah. Voilà, it's all.
I've always been quite curious about a country like, Morocco, and mostly it's to do with textiles and color for me, because I'm a textile artist as well. So to be in contact with a group of creatives across in Casablanca, that was a treat. So I would say it was fun, it was explorative, and yeah, loved it, and it's good to be here.
I was wondering how the schedule of the workshop since October to January was gave a certain shape to the result, the final result. So could you?
I felt, I think this has been such a holistic project. It's been a humane project. It wasn't, I know that there are these evaluations and how you set it out, that there's going to be an outcome, but it's like coming into the project with my head full. There are a lot of things going on, a lot of projects going on, but the idea that it's a storytelling project, wanting to really do it, and then being given the space to be myself and to really collaborate with other creatives in that way, where they're just being themselves, and we are having this space where we can actually pause and think in a very natural, human way, and then come up with the ideas about letters. It was such a precious space to be. It's being asked to, I feel like it's being commissioned to stop, really. Like, I just feel like I was commissioned to stop and just think and reflect on how I work. And for example, the example that I can give was even in writing the letters, I had to tap into, okay, I'm writing to Mel right now, I'm writing to Mano, I'm writing to Sufyan, and it was more of conjuring who they are and what I've learned about them, the new relationship, and the contact that I'd had with Mel already, and then just picking up pen to paper and let the words flow onto the paper without planning, without like, okay, it's going to be this way. So it was kind of like a celebration of what I aspire for in my practice, because I see my practice as a holistic approach, and it's very spiritual for me, because I just believe that what I give out within myself is to do with my faith, is to do with who I am. I bring all of me, and in that writing, I was just sharing my thoughts, no restrictions, no ways of like, oh, do it like this because it has to be like that. So it was very freeing. The whole experience was freeing, and the icing and the cherry on top of the cake was actually writing the letters, tangibly holding them in our hands. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Maybe I will have a last question in order to respect the time, but I wonder how this residency will give shape to your future projects, and because you're all involved in your communities, and maybe you would like to talk about the new tools you used, or the interdisciplinarity, the connections you made, and how this experience would transform what you are usually doing. Maybe Sofiane, who didn't talk until now, if you want to say a few words.
Yeah, for me, I think from this residency, we learn too much things. I think about how create things, how produce in time of crisis, in time of the pandemic. I think it was, at least for me, as a person, as an artist, as a podcaster, and as an activist, I work with the people without meeting them physically, but we create things that in general, like for example, to produce a podcast, usually we meet people, we do it in the same space, in the same physical space, and like this time it was like very particular that we did that by doing virtual meetings, and I learned a new process to create, and maybe I will briefly talk about the process. I remember that in the first meeting, it was like just about our idea, and like we did a lot of brainstorming, like what we want to create, what things we want to talk about it. I remember that we talked a lot about our favorite authors, about places in Coventry, in Casablanca. And I think like the result was the letters and the podcast, and but it was also a way to talk about to pay tribute to our cities, and to talk about intimacy, about what we feel. And I think we learn, at least me, I learn a lot about these things, and like how to talk about my city, about myself, my feelings, with the people without meeting them physically, and yeah, so it was the things that I learned. And it was also about storytelling, because like for me, storytelling, it's also a tool to talks about for changing the world, and for doing advocacy for our things that we fight for it. So I think we did all these things by writing letters and by producing a podcast, and I think it's very interesting as a process.
Thank you very much, Soufiane. We all do this because we have the hope to change the world and to make it better and more inclusive and more tolerant and more respectful. And maybe I would like to ask Lou, as a writer, you welcomed with a lot of friendship this experience. How is it for you as for your personal work? To see this collective experience and shared across borders, across languages, across objects, tools. How is it?
I was just so interested to see that yes, everyone wanted to actually challenge, you know, a very specific set of what is usually expected. So if it's an online collaboration, it can only be online. If it's face to face, it can only be face to face. Do you see what I mean? And this time, everything was made online, tangible materials, translation, language, and nothing was. It was very organic. It was very organic, and that was that was really powerful, and that really inspired me, certainly for my own work. How about you, Kenza? I know that storytelling in your work is also quite important.
I was very impressed by and very intimate elements in a way with perfect person that you perfectly don't know, and to start sharing process. For me, we use storytelling as a way to change the mentalities, to say stories in order to sensibilize our citizens to certain social issues and very difficult and hard social issues about injustice, about oppression, and to humanize what happens. Make people aware of what's happening is a very strong way to make people know more surely that with the numbers or percentages or with a very scientific or abstract information. So letting place to emotion is very important in order to share something. But if I have to keep in mind one word about the whole experience is the word across, because you pulverized the limits of everything about of the languages, of the geography, of the limits of time. We realized this experience in a time when the borders in Morocco are closed. They won't open until the 7th of February. So it was a problem for the post office. Everything was in a mess in order to make the letters physically arrive. It was not as easy as usual. And you made it, not only through Zoom session, to virtual space, but you made it concrete in your life. So maybe across is the strongest word of this collective experience. And I thank you for reminding us all of this.
Absolutely, we are extremely grateful, and I'm sure members of the audience will have questions of their own or things that they want to share, and maybe we can invite you now if you've got a question. No pressure, but you can just jump in if you've got one, and that can be for all our participants. Or
I've got first I'll jump in. I wanted to say just congratulations. I really enjoyed that piece. But I had a question around, I'd like to know more about how you put that together and the decisions that were made to create it. And also particularly to ask how the experience of what I believe is speaking the letters, so voicing the letters, because that to me, I can imagine is, I don't know, it's quite a unique experience. I think that when you write in kind of isolation, and you get confidence from that intimacy of writing and being by yourself, and then it's a totally different thing to then voice that and say that out loud and share that. So yeah, I just wondered if any of you had any thoughts both about the process of making it and that process of speaking what you've written.
So I personally wrote my letters in the bath. So very intimate, chill, relaxed, rest, and everything that has been said. And then Sufyan, during one of the sessions, Sufyan gave us a great advice that now stayed in my with me to record our voices. So we were supposed to read the letters, but under a duvet to make sure that there won't be like any noise that we didn't want to disturb the understanding of the letters. So again, very intimate under your duvet, recording your letters. So yeah, it's been very gentle all the way through. We never read directly our letters to one another, so there's never been like an element of pressure, or like it's been like from the individual, like deep down from within to the collective. That's what I will say.
Yeah, I think listening back to the recording, I'm really enjoying how like it was quiet in my head writing, and then listening to it, and how emphatic some words are. Is it like by about? So it's like really showing how passionate I am about specific subjects, and when that, and also listening to like French, which is not my language, and then it's being mixed together. Because I was even saying to Lou, oh, okay, because there's a divide, isn't it? Like we are swapping as we're speaking in the audio space. So it's this switching of language, and then the use of proverbs for me in my letters. So all of that, well, it brings different reflections. Basically, you reflect on it in a different way. But the thing that is quite beautiful that I think I'll take away from this, the highlight for me, is what Mel said. It was very gentle. It was like we just being held, like, okay, like you're producing something, and that something is you. It's just been so beautiful. Yeah, I think it would be wonderful if something is taken away and is something to learn from this process of commissioning and working with artists, because the process was powerful. Thank you.
Also to jump on what Laura is saying, and Avena stopped, but I feel like, again, because it was so experimental and so intimate, it was essential. It's been crucial for us to have Lou and Kenza to coordinate everything. So we could just like let go of everything, and we've been chasing emails, so many times and stuff. But it was really important for this whole thing to come together, to have this strong coordination team to allow us to birth ourselves, so it's been very beautiful, not curation, but coordination. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for me, I only speak Arabic and French, so it was a good opportunity for me to improve my level in English. So I am happy with this experience, which has benefited me greatly, and I am happy to have made new friends from United Kingdom and from Coventry especially. Our relation, I think, will continue after this, and we maybe we make something other.
Yeah, for me, I just want to say that I think we create this podcast, and we wrote the letters with a lot of kindness and of good curing, and the process was very democratic. And I think that yeah, that was so beautiful, like, and it was a lesson of a human being to like to create things like with easily and with a lot of beaucoup de bienveillance, a lot of kindness. And just I want to answer to the question, like Jonathan asked if we will visit each other cities. I'm sure that like the day that I will visit Coventry, like the letters and all things that we said in this residency will be present, and like it will impact our my vision to Coventry and even Casablanca, because in the exercise, like I was questioning my relationship with Casablanca, so I found that it's so interesting.